Washington Fish Questers Blake here, joining you from historic Little Wap Tidelands here in Hood Canal. I am going to shuck 18 oysters. You know, I was thinking, what oyster recipe haven't I done? And perhaps the most epic of them all, and that is Angels on Horseback. I love that name. It's just so dang epic. I mean, hey, and if you like bacon and oysters, it's an epic recipe. And it's great for Washington as well, because here on public beaches, the limit is 18 oysters, but you gotta shuck them on the beach. And this is a recipe where you don't use the shell, so that's just perfect. It's not a terribly low tide today, it's barely under a zero, and I showed up right at tide. Preferably would have showed up 30 to 60 minutes early. So in such an event where the tide's coming back up, this is always a good strategy. But I'm gonna gather my oysters, you know, go up a little bit up the beach, because you gotta shuck them on the beach like I said, but you know, grab them now because the tide's gonna start coming up. Just make a pile of them in front of me on the beach and start shucking. Yeah, there we go. Another key thing is to find a nice rock to sit on. Now I like lots of barnacles up my butt, so this one's perfect. All right, I think I've done half a dozen oyster episodes, and every time I cut my hand and bleed in the episode, not this time. For not only did I bring my shucking hand glove, which is a little small, but I brought my oyster holding hand glove, just a big old fatty garden glove. You know, one thing you should know about me is I'm a quick learner. If I do something, you know, 25, 30 years, eventually it just clicks. Now, Hood Canal has a lot of big oyster clusters and oysters on rocks, and some people avoid them, but I really like them both because I tend to like a flatter oyster, like a less fat one and kind of more lean. So it's all on preference, but I think the rock and the ones that are in a cluster like this, where there's multiple of them, are just excellent. Oh, there we go. Trying to cut through the abductor muscle here. There we go, look at that. Well, what do you say? Should I slurp it? I should. Okay. There's shell in there. I love me a Hood Canal oyster. Oysters, by the way, around Puget Sound and Washington State and anywhere, they do taste different. A Hood Canal oyster tastes way different than a Nisqually oyster. Tastes way different than a Willapa Bay oyster. If you ever want to just have a crazy good time doing oyster testing, just like a cheese taste testing or a wine taste testing, you would be blown away. And they actually have a testing card, the same thing you would for like wine or cheese. But at any rate, now I can only take 17 home because that does count against your limit each one you slurp on the beach. Ultimately, I'll probably be taking somewhere between 12 to 15 home because I'll drink my fair share. You may observe that I shuck oysters with both hands. I am fairly ambidextrous, or at least cross-dominant. I do things with both hands. I tend to write with my right and do everything else with my left. Things like oyster shucking, it's just kind of just whichever hand I happen to have the oyster in. That's a good looking oyster. Yeah, I gotta start putting some aside for my limit, otherwise I can't do the recipe for you. In case you're wondering why you gotta shuck them on the beach, it's because they'll reseed. So, little oyster larvae will connect to an old oyster shell and regrow a new oyster. So that's why that is. I am so grateful to get to live in such a beautiful part of the world, you know. Yeah, I think this one's begging to get slurped. They're so good. They're so dang good. I guess another benefit about the ones on the rocks is the rock is an additional guard for your hand in case the oyster knife slips, like it just did because I was talking into the camera and it went boom and hit the rock instead of my hand. Look at that beautiful oyster. I think the only law I missed was they have to be 3 inches across the shell. As I say every time, be sure to check the Washington Shellfish Beaches interactive maps to make sure A, it's open, and then B, that there's no marine biotoxins in the area. And you certainly don't want to be slurping them like I was if it's hot out. So I filmed this in April, and it's a very nice day, but they're still nice and cool. But definitely consume raw shellfish at your own risk and all that good stuff. So this one I got by the hinge. Some people just go by the hinge. I tend to find a weakness, but this one didn't really have too many. Oh my word, what a beautiful oyster. Look at that. Look at that oyster. Well, I guess I'll use this in my recipe. Not, I'm gonna drink it. Oh, that was so good. I do need to focus though. I think I've already drank about 6. So it'll be a dozen that I make at home. And I will say, although I do prefer flat oysters kind of, for this angels and horseback recipe, you probably want a thicker oyster, or at least like a regular kind of oyster, because you're going to wrap it in bacon, throw it on a grill, so it's good to have a little chew in there. All right, this is my last one, number 18, and number 12 as far as what I'm taking home, because I have sat here and drank half a dozen. Hey, there we go. Let's go put these angels on horseback. Back home now, and now it's time for the actual recipe part. Here you go. As you can see, it's a very complex recipe. And actually all you need is the bacon and the oysters, and that's about it, and heat source. You know, I saw online people cook them at 450 for 10 to 12 minutes in the oven. I tend to like mine on the charcoal. Now you can have smoked angels on horseback, which are kind of smoked oysters wrapped in the bacon. So these are more like smoky angels on horseback. But so I like the charcoal briquette flavor, and then I use just like a dash of Tabasco on them. But you can just eat them, like I say, straight up with just the bacon and the oysters. Smoked paprika, people put on them a lot. But I like the Tabasco, especially because I kind of dry out the bacon a little over this grill. Perhaps the smoked paprika would be better if it was out of the oven. At any rate, let's get our chimney of briquettes going here. This chimney's seen better days. I think it fell off the truck at the last Tacoma Rainiers game, perhaps. All right. Woo! I can't think of a more efficient way to light the chimney. There we go. All right, while those briquettes are getting nice and hot, let's go prepare our oysters. All right, let's start with the bacon. As you can see, this is non-peppered. If it was peppered, I could just cross it off my ingredients list there and just have peppered bacon. Everybody loves bacon, me included. You can easily over bacon your oysters though, so I like to cut this into maybe a third. So, you know, it depends on the size of your oysters though. I don't like to wrap them really more than once around. Otherwise it's just too much. And then it's up to you, again, kind of based on the size of your oyster. You can even cut them across like this. And I probably will, because I do want to taste the oyster. You know, a little bacon fat does go a long way. So each strip of bacon I'm getting 6 oyster wrappings out of. Very economical there, because it's going to only take me 2 strips of bacon. Alright, I'm going to take one of my oysters. As much as I hate to waste any nectar, I did give these a rinse because they did have quite a bit of shell fragments. And there's probably a way to do this. I'm sure someone's watching this as like a bacon wrapping master, but I just kind of wrap them sort of tight around the oyster, kind of like that. I sort of like it where, how do I say it, like part of it's sticking out there, you know what I mean? It's not wrapped just like a coiled rope. It's kind of got a little bit of finesse there. And then you just take the toothpick, put it right through. I have done these without toothpicks. Just maybe leave a little more bacon on then to kind of use as a way to tie that off, sort of, you know, just using pressure if you tie them really tight, but that should do it. Now these toothpicks are probably going to, well, they might. They could catch a blaze on the grill, but that's all good. If you ever heard devil on horseback, that's apparently a date wrapped in bacon, cooked in the similar fashion, you know. Both recipes, as far as I know, angel and devil on horseback, are from England. If these toothpicks look abnormally large, that's because they are. I don't have any regular sized toothpicks in the cupboard, so there you go, kind of these sort of bigger kebab toothpicks. So obviously any size toothpick will work. Even if you have a kebab, you could just put like 6 or 8 oysters on a single kebab and pin them that way. Well, there they are. Let's get them on the grill. I'm gonna let those oysters sit with the lid on there for about 6 minutes, checking them occasionally to make sure there's not a bacon-inspired grease fire. And then I'll open the top and just flip them over and see how much longer they take. It can take anywhere from like 2 to 6 minutes at that point. It just really depends on how hot those charcoals are and how much grease fire there is. So I'll let you know at the end. All right, it's been 6 minutes. So you can see there are some grease fires going on, looks like there. Either that or I just put the charcoal in way too early so it's still in fire mode. Oh no, that's grease. So I'm going to go ahead and flip these. Some of the toothpicks are burnt, but the oysters and the bacon look totally fine. I like a little char. Probably would have done well to perhaps grease the rack here, but... Alright. I'm going to give this about another 6 minutes, but with this fire, we'll see. It might be shorter than that. So I really got to keep an eye on them, because that could definitely burn them up if I'm not careful. Alright, it's been 3 additional minutes, so for a total of 9. And take a look at these oysters. I would say those are done. That's just about how I like them. You see the bacon's nice and seared. The oysters are cooked down, you know, but they're not, so they're not slimy and kind of gelatinous, but they're firm now, but not overdone yet. So this is when I like to take them off. See the nice color on that oyster, for instance. Yeah, really nice kind of brown color to these. So total of 9 minutes, all into them. All right, I'm going to push them close together here. And then I'm going to give them a dusting of pepper. Dash of hot sauce if that's your thing. You don't need to do that. Alright, there you go. Angels on horseback. Smoky angels on horseback. This one's almost falling apart, and you got to remember that the toothpicks are in some of them, because since I do them on the grill like that, some of them get incinerated. But down the hatch. That is excellent. Almost too smoky, honestly. Maybe I should have let that not sit under the hood as long as I did. But if you like a nice smoky oyster, that was perfect. About my only critique. Besides that, it's excellent. So, yeah, I'm going to just pound these down now. Here's one where the steak I got to be careful for because it's all but gone. It is gone. Oh, I found it. There it is. No, that one was perfect. Holy smokes. All right. And one last one. Look at that. Look how good that looks. Oh, yeah. All right, those last two are like jackpot. That first one was pretty good, but it was just must have been a little underdone or something because those last two, you know, those angels on horseback just sent me to heaven. So thank you so much. See you next time on Washington Fish Quest.